Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ryan Grimm will be with us to give us an update on the Gaza Sumud Flotilla. A drop site editor was sailing on one of the 44 boats. And later in the show, Natasha Hakimi Zapata will be with us to talk about Corbyn's new party in the UK and why Labour is falling apart. Also on the program, Israel has illegally intercepted almost every humanitarian flotilla ship sailing to Gaza, except one, according to reports. If true, this would be the first time a humanitarian ship reached Palestinian waters since Israel implemented a naval blockade on Gaza in 2009. Just a reminder that history did not start on October 7th, okay? Italy's largest union, with over 5 million members, calls for a general strike in support of the flotilla. Shutdown Day 2, Trump threatens more federal workforce layoffs if Democrats don't agree, with no negotiation, to the Republican continuing resolution. Trump starts by freezing billions of dollars for blue states and uses government websites to blame the left, which is illegal under the Hatch Act, by the way. The shutdown halted the official jobs numbers, but ADP releases downward August revisions and awful September numbers showing thousands of losses. The Trump administration has brought its family separation policy back, and it's more severe than ever, per a Guardian investigation. Trump has pulled 42,000 federal officers working on crimes like human trafficking into ICE operations, per totals compiled by Mother Jones.
Yeah, get out of those luxury hotels. Nothing going on bad in there.
Yeah.
Go look into the kitchens.
I would know. I would know.
Get out of the luxury hotels. Go into the Home Depots.
Miller, Bondi, and Hegseth head down to Memphis to rally cops and troops ahead of the occupation. The footage of Stephen Miller trying to rile people up is something else, not an alpha male. And lastly, Planned Parenthood has been forced to close its 2 remaining clinics in Louisiana. But Ezra Klein says we should cede on this issue. Can't get over that. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an Majority Report Thursday. Hello to Matt. Hello to Brian. Great show for you today, and I'm glad we were able to get Ryan to come on today to speak about the flotilla. We're still getting information coming in and out, but at the very least, Israel illegally intercepted 43 out of the 44 ships in international waters, and one we don't know yet. And we'll be talking to Ryan about what he's heard and what Dropsite has been doing in terms of their excellent reporting on this. But we are officially in day 2 of the government shutdown. As a reminder, the longest shutdown ever was in Trump's first term. It was 34 days, and we'll see how long this one goes. Republicans, really at Trump's directive, are refusing to negotiate with Senate Democrats despite needing 60 votes to get this continuing resolution through. Non-essential services have begun to shut down. There have been furloughs at places like the SEC. Other agencies like the FTC are not able to do their work. ICE is still running, though. Ken Klippenstein reported that they prepared for this, so that don't worry, everybody. ICE is still operating and breaking up families and shoving grandpas to the ground and breaking their bones. So we can rest easy knowing that that is still going on.
Would have been nice for Congress to have asserted, the Democrats in Congress to asserted their authority over such sort of spending measures before ICE got an FBI-sized budget to carry themselves through this exact moment.
Exactly. I mean, this is what we were saying in the spring. They could have used this leverage in the spring to curtail the explosion of the budget for the modern day Gestapo in the United States.
To say Russ Vought can't just Project 2025 things that your Congress members voted on. That's not the executive branch's function.
And think about this for a second. How much does it undercut their negotiating power right now? When in the spring you had, can you clarify if it was 10 Democrats? I would love just that number on the 10 Senate Democrats, I believe, that capitulated and voted on this. We know that Schumer and Gillibrand were two of them and Fetterman, of course, but we were speculating at the time that you had these two New York Democratic senators. Really, the reporting was that Gillibrand was screaming at the caucus saying, we can't shut the government down. We have to, it was 10. Okay, great. We can't shut the government down. She was yelling at the rest of the members. And why would that be the case? Well, one, they have this like blinkered idea, to borrow a word from Sam, that you just got to lay down in the grass and play dead, basically.
As you do when you're being attacked by a bear. That's advice from James Carville, who is, by the way, a Palantir advisor.
Yeah, and hasn't been relevant in elections since before I was born. But, you know, that's like the best case scenario. But what in reality I think it is that Wall Street hates the government shutdown. It's not a coincidence, in my view, that the two New York Democrats in the Senate were in lockstep on this front, because it disrupts the market. You have things like what I mentioned in headlines, that we don't have the jobs report that came out. You have to have estimates from private entities like the ADP to see how this data, what this data actually indicates. Inflation data is not going to be able to come out. It's been disrupted. So it also indicates stability, and the markets begin to tank, and that's who they represent. But what they allowed is the terrorization of communities across the country and the largest transfer of wealth in maybe 100 years from to the top 1%. And so, by the way, all polling shows that the public will blame the government shutdown on Republicans, and the margins on those polls have been in double digits. There's no ambiguity here. But Trump is making threats because he is afraid that this is going to hurt him. This is what he posted this morning on Truth Social. I have a meeting today with Russ Vought. He is of Project 2025 fame to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They are not stupid people, so maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again. The president does not have the authority to eliminate agencies. Congress creates agencies, so he's lying about that. He's bluffing.
Not yet.
And by the way, remember when Trump and Republicans kept denying that they were a part of Project 2025, and you had some people in media who were really like on board and believing them? Trump says he's not involved in this Heritage Foundation Project 2025 thing, despite his staffers all being involved in it and it looking like a blueprint for his agenda as president. So why not trust the most notorious liar in politics?
And why would you think that the Heritage Foundation wouldn't have a huge say in the Republican administration anyway?
Well,
you know.
It's
Anyway,
getting back to
next time.
Nah, yeah, try again. This whole political commentary thing. But Trump is already doing these mass firings. He's already doing it. These buyouts, these resignations, they're already in process. And the easiest thing the Democrats are going to be able to extract if they get something in these negotiations and don't cave is the extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. They expire at the end of this year. And if they expire, premiums are going to skyrocket for folks on Obamacare. And Republicans are actually not, I think at least Thune and non-Trumpy Republicans, congressional Republicans, frontline Republicans are terrified of this prospect because they timed in their budget the Medicaid cuts, the bulk of them, to happen after 2026, after the midterms, because they know how much this is going to hurt people. But if these ACA tax credits expire, that's immediate evidence of how they're hurting people. And so Democrats need to be asking for more rain and ice. Stop sending in the National Guard into our cities. They need to reach an agreement on Trump not rescinding federal funds that Congress has agreed to. This ACA subsidies thing is the bare minimum. But they're not even articulating that well, leadership at least. But there are people who are. And if you were like an alien that came down from another planet, and I guess for some reason you had like an understanding of electoral just run with this for a sec. Electoral
if I went into
politics,
if I went into another alien world, I would look at their political system.
Right. Okay. Well, it's just this is a very strained hypothetical, but it's like, say you could understand politics and you were like, who, but you didn't know for some reason who the leaders of the Democratic Party were. Okay. See, Brian's like, shut up, Emma.
So you're,
Stop
I'm
trying.
on your side.
Okay.
Say you're part of
Right.
say you're part of an advanced civilization that visits Earth, so clearly you're a communist.
Yes, obviously. I'm sticking with it. But if you saw this video, you would think that these two people were the leaders of the Democratic Party because they are the only people who know how to message, apparently. Here are Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez explaining what is happening with the government shutdown.
Hey, everybody. I was walking here in Washington, D.C., and who did I bump into? One of my favorite members of the United States Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
And one of my favorite senators.
All right. Anyhow, as everybody knows, we are now in a government shutdown. Republicans are attacking Alexandria, attacking me. Why didn't you vote for this clean CR to keep the government open?
Well, there's nothing clean about it. This is one of the dirtiest tricks that is being pulled on the American people right now. Starting today, October 1st, and throughout the rest of the month, Americans across this country are going to start getting notifications that their insurance premiums are up to doubling. We're talking about...
Say that again.
Your monthly insurance premiums are going to double for millions of people across the country.
At a time when we are already paying, by far, the highest prices in the world for healthcare at a time when people can't afford it right now. So what happens?
That means people getting bankrupt over chemotherapy, people going to the pharmacy and not being able to get their insulin. And frankly, it means a lot of Americans are going to be in danger. And Republicans want us to rubber stamp that. So what are we going to say to that, Bernie?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not only be in danger. Let's be clear. And doesn't make me happy to have to say this, but there have been studies out there that when you combine doubling premiums for the ACA and then throwing 15 million people off of Medicaid and the ACA, the result is, according to studies at Yale and the University of Pennsylvania, 50,000 low-income, working-class Americans will die every single year. All right? If you don't have the money to go to a doctor and you're sick, you die. And that's what we're looking at. That's what this clean bill is about.
And so Republicans want us to rubber stamp that. And we're saying no. We need to stand up for the American people. We need to stand up for our healthcare system. And if they want our votes, they need to make sure that we're protecting every American and making sure that we can do what we can to continue to make healthcare accessible, affordable, as we work to make it a human right for all.
Right. So let me just back that up. Remember, right now, our healthcare system is broken. Right now, we're the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare to all people. And these guys want to make it even worse. We're not going to let that happen.
No, we're not.
Thank you.
Onward.
It's refreshing.
So, like, there's all this talk about, you get from people saying, well, if you don't like old people in Congress, then what do you say about Bernie Sanders? Well, if you're a senator can do a straight 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes without a cut talking about this stuff, then they pass. That's the test.
Completely. I mean, I was thinking that exact same thing. How vibrant he is. It's amazing. And how there were a lot of folks worried about that heart attack. Well, he's still kicking and sounds as good as ever, honestly.
But we're talking about hundreds of dollars a month for people on their health insurance if they're on the exchanges, and without those subsidies. That, like you said, that's if you need health insurance, because that's if I was like 25 again and I'm looking at that and I don't have a job, I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm going to go without health insurance.
Right.
Unless you need it.
Yeah. And the central claim from the Republicans to combat this is a complete lie. They are saying that Democrats want illegals in their framing to have access to this. Statutorily, the Affordable Care Act, even if you were to buy it out of pocket as an undocumented immigrant in this country, you are legally not allowed to. Immigrants who have no documentation in the United States subsidize our social safety net because with taxes, they pay into it, but they cannot get anything out of it. They are lying to you.
People ask
it's the reverse.
People are going to ask themselves, like, am I a undocumented person? No. Okay. What's going to happen to my health insurance rates? They're still going to go through the roof. And you have the Republicans saying these just Nazi lies. Oh, we have to look into this infrastructure project in New York and New Jersey to check if it's DEI or not. That's just appealing to racists. That's a Klan appeal. The exact same thing with this. You think your services in America, your healthcare services suck because of immigrants? Are you stupid? Like, I mean, Republican voters are. Democrats need to be forceful in saying, like, no, the general person is not persuaded by this just Nazi playbook type lie, where we're going to blame the failure of a governments controlled by billionaires on immigrants, like people that are, frankly, like you say, either propping them up by having their wages garnished despite not being able to take benefits, or even actually doing a lot of the labor in this country. Yeah, and
unfortunately, though, we can't really expect that right now from Democratic leadership. And Hakeem Jeffries, when he's been going on these media hits, he'll talk about affordability and mention the healthcare piece. But he lingers on this racist meme that Trump posts, that we posted, that we spoke about.
Say it to my face.
It's driving me insane. This era of celebrity Democrats centering themselves is over. You need to get on camera and redirect, as Zoran Mamdani does. And as Bernie said, they're attacking, the Republicans are attacking me. And then they go into the spiel and speak about how people are being materially affected.
Yeah.
The era of the liberal, celebrity, self-centered Democrat who's there to own Donald Trump and get into some beef with him, it's over. And it's ineffective. And it's creating oxygen for the Republicans to distract from this. But here's versus Nancy Pelosi being asked about how AOC Republicans are doing her a favor to a degree, saying that she's responsible for these negotiations. And Chris Hayes asked her about this the other night, and she was like, yeah, come talk to me directly if that's the case. She's trying to position herself as more of a leader than Schumer and Jeffries, which I like. Of course, if she's Schumer.
If she's going to be positioned as a leadership, the Democrats need to give her leadership powers.
Right. But listen to how Nancy Pelosi, who Ryan Grimm will be on with us shortly, his book, We've Got People, speaks about how they had a, very difficult kind of contentious situation because Pelosi was, not in favor of AOC's more grassroots energy and things like that. This is what she says when asked about AOC's role in these shutdown talks.
There was a thought from the Republicans that AOC is directing this, and she said that senators are welcome to go to her office directly. Is she driving that?
Why are you saying such a ridiculous thing?
I'm just quoting what AOC said. She said go to her office directly. Do you think there's any credibility to that?
She's not directing this. She's wonderful. She's a real team player and the rest of that. You started by saying Republicans saying that she's directing this. She is not. Hakeem Jeffries is. And this takes a lot of experience, a lot of unity from the caucus in terms of the point of view. And that's what this is. She's an articulate spokesperson for her point of view. Hakeem Jeffries is leading this.
When you have to say it.
Yeah.
When you have to say it.
I mean, he's who you picked, but there's no confidence in his leadership, clearly.
And I mean, I've got many problems with Pelosi, but I mean, Pelosi would have been doing a better job than this right now. There's no question, in my view. She's at least a partisan. Hakeem Jeffries is a fundraiser primarily. And the idea that Democratic leadership is spending any amount of time speaking about this meme, this is literally the first time most Americans are paying attention to anything Hakeem Jeffries is doing. Anything. You have a finite amount of time to show and media attention to show what you're going to do for the American people. And they are taking the bait or I can't tell if they're just taking the bait or actively directing the conversation to the frickin' meme. But listen to J.D. Vance yesterday. This is what leadership has allowed them to do. Distract, more circus, more memes. Nothing but the material implications of what they're trying to do. Jeffries allows for this distraction. Here I give you the Vice President of the United States.
Good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican-American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had like the curly animated mustache too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay. I'll take one more question.
I know that Jeffries was the subject of the racist meme. I understand that. But as leader, you have a responsibility to represent the hundreds of millions of people who are going to be affected by this horrific Republican budget. And you have to use every opportunity to communicate that.
You get one quote in this.
They're ill-equipped.
This is from yesterday. AP, the Democrats embrace a shutdown fight in a rare moment of unity against Trump. We need unity, Pelosi says, right? So you get one quote, Leader Jeffries. You're going to get one quote. And what's that going to be? In a press conference, Jeffries offered a harsh message to the president. What's that message?
What was it about?
The next time you have something to say about me, don't cop out through a racist and fake AI video. When I'm back in the Oval Office, say it to my face. And then what happened?
Was that 4 times he mentioned himself in one quote?
Then he got invited into the Oval Office, and Trump had Trump 2028 hats there, and he got a nice little photo op with Hakeem Jeffries, and we are where we are now. So again, you had one opportunity to get a quote in a place like the AP, which is going to set the record across, because that's just reran and paper across the land.
Yeah.
And you made it about say it to my face, and not Americans' health insurance premiums are going to double. That is from say for instance, $350 to $700. Maybe mention that. And not the personal slight against you and how people should take it. Like, I mean, it's
Zoran has been attacked in the most racist, vile ways, and but he never lingers on it. Never. He had that one emotional speech where he spoke about those death threats, and that was it. He's always redirecting it back to what he's going to do for New Yorkers. You see the contrast in how Zoran messages things, AOC, Bernie, leftism versus this liberalism, a hollow ideology. that is about individuals and markets and capital and is ill-equipped to handle the responsibility of beating fascism, because we can only do it as a collective. No one cares about your personal beef with Trump, and it's distracting from us all coming together to fight this.
He, in that mention, when he was talking about the racism, he says, Zoran said, on the people that I love, and I try not to talk about it because the function of racism, as Toni Morrison says, is distraction. So maybe read Toni Morrison, who you claim, like, I imagine Hakeem Jeffries probably thinks he represents like the legacy of Toni Morrison or some shit. Read her.
Yeah. Also, say it to my face. Is this an 80s like John Hughes movie?
Yes, that's where Hakeem Jeffries' head's at right now.
In a moment, we're going to be talking to Ryan Grimm, but first, a word from one of our sponsors. I don't know about you, but my social media feed is filled with all of these different health trends. Can red light therapy solve your skin? Should you be slamming olive oil shots? Well, the algorithm, you've got to give it a rest, leave it to the professional, and turn to healthcare professionals with ZocDoc. It's easy. You can find doctors that are right for you and instantly book an appointment. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. ZocDoc lets you book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty. You can filter for doctors who are near you, take your insurance, and are a good fit for you. You can find the type of care you're looking for, from good bedside manner to fast wait times to doctors with the best listening skills. You can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works for you, and click instantly to book. Appointments made through ZocDoc also happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even get same-day appointments. I found my dentist, who I love, through ZocDoc, and the interface is just very intuitive. The fact that other doctors' offices don't have websites like this that are so easy is just like an indictment. But good for ZocDoc, because they have it figured out. You can see the calendar, you can do it online, you can input your information. It's as easy as it gets. I'd like to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring today's episode. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/majority to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/majority, ZocDoc.com/majority. Link will be down below in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. That's ZocDoc.com/majority. And you can download the ZocDoc app to sign up for free and book a top-rated doctor. ZocDoc.com/majority. Quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Ryan Grimm. We are back, and we are joined once again by friend of the show, Ryan Grimm, co-founder and reporter at Dropside News, co-host of Counterpoints. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Oh, thanks, Emma. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Lots of news. I'm sure you're busy as well. And by the way, congrats on, Dropsite. It's moving on up. I mean, your reporting is really getting recognized, especially on the international stage right now, because you have an editor, Alex Colson, who is one of the 500 activists, lawyers, journalists, and more around that number, who were sailing on the Mediterranean Sea for over a month trying to break the siege with the Sumud Flotilla. Last night, Israel's Navy illegally intercepted these ships, except one as of the reporting right now. But Ryan, if you could just give us a recap of the last month and where things stand over the past 24 hours, after the past 24 hours.
Yeah, they left from Spain, so it's been quite a long, several week long journey across the Mediterranean. Picked up another fleet basically in Tunisia. In Tunisia, one of their boats was hit by some type of Israeli drone strike that caused mostly cosmetic, significant, but not debilitating damage, and was there to send a message, that kinetic force was planned to be used against the boats in the flotilla, and throughout their journey, the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs continued, putting out baseless assertions that the flotilla was actually Hamas. Just in the last day or two, they put out what they said were never before revealed documents that they had obtained in 2021 and before that proved that Hamas had sponsored this flotilla, which is absurd on its face. Like, the flotilla was not organized in 2021. It quickly became clear they had actually tried to put these exact same documents out the last time Greta was on a flotilla, and there were all sorts of other self-contradictory elements to it. But what was concerning about the claims was not the substance of them, because everyone could see through that, but what it foreshadowed in terms of a potentially violent response. About a week ago, 9 of the ships were attacked by what can only be Israeli drones. One of them completely disabled, had its mast destroyed. And the organizers were getting signals from their sources and around Europe that the next night was going to bring, even more serious attacks, because nobody was seriously hurt, despite the 9 ships, being attacked by drones. And it was then that the Italian Navy, said it was going to send its ship alongside them. Spain then followed them and said it was Spain that they were also going to send one. And so the attack that they were expecting the next night did not materialize. And I think that was a real consequence of the Italian Navy getting involved. Now, Meloni, the Italian prime minister, was highly critical of the flotilla, wanted nothing to do with it, had nothing but ill things to say about it. But because the Genoa dock workers and other unions were out in the streets demanding that Italy stand up for the flotilla, which had a number of Italian members of parliament on it, Meloni had no choice but to act. The Spanish and Italian ships that left, though, the flotilla when it got to what they call the Orange Zone. The Orange Zone being this area roughly 90 to 110 nautical miles off of the Gaza shore, where Israel in the past has intercepted all of these flotillas. And so once they got there, these 40 plus ships were on their own. And then it was last night that all of them were boarded, except for
that.
But
well,
it's unclear what's going on with the last one.
Yes.
Right. It might be a technical malfunction with the ship's not moving, and it hasn't moved for like 12 hours. So it's likely that crew has been taken into custody, but
right.
We don't know. Like it remains an open question, and people are trying to track it and figure out what's going on.
I saw a reporting from The Guardian this morning that seemed to confirm at the very least that one boat, Mykonos, was reported to have escaped the blockade. Mm-hmm. And even if they were intercepted, which is obviously quite likely, this would still be, if they crossed a certain threshold, the first time that a humanitarian vessel has crossed into Gaza's nautical territory since 2009, which is when Israel implemented its naval blockade of Gaza. Another reminder to folks that, Israel has basically been controlling Gaza's borders, land and sea for decades, and controlling the flow of trade, controlling what goes in and out of Gaza well prior to October 7th. So this is historic if they even got into the territory of Gaza's waters.
Right. And so our editor, Alex Colson, was on a ship called the Sirius, and he and the ship, they live streamed both their CCTV footage as well as from his own phone, so that the world could see that this was a completely nonviolent action. In fact, when they got close to what they considered to be the Orange Zone, they actually filmed themselves like dumping all of their kitchen knives, for instance, overboard. Anything that could be remotely misinterpreted as a threat to the Israeli military was tossed overboard, and they were trained in nonviolent response to the Israeli incursion. And as far as we could tell so far, we'll learn more when we can talk to Alex again on the other side, that we're not aware of any like major violent incidents.
That's good so far.
Yeah, they have said that the European and Americans will be kept for 72 hours and then deported to Europe. And so we'll continue to monitor that situation and see whether or not they abide by that.
And what's concerning a little bit though is that you have I was seeing that they may be held for a little bit longer because of Yom Kippur, and the courts may be shut down. I'm not sure what the status of that is at this point, but let's just play a little bit of footage here from the flotilla. This is footage as Ryan was speaking about. I'm not sure who recorded this. This is from the Global Sumud Flotilla's Instagram account itself, but of the IDF intercepting at least one of these ships. So it says, for more than 14 hours, heavily armed Israeli occupation forces intercepted flotilla vessels. And you see them approaching. Obviously heavily armed. These ships were crewed by... Yep. Wait, what'd you say, Ryan?
Masked up.
Masked up, right.
Yeah, like ICE agents.
Exactly. They must be very proud. And, yeah, we're just kind of scrolling through. You can see them boarding. And this is some of the footage that Ryan was referencing. You mentioned earlier this strike on the... on one of on the flotilla in Tunisia. This is not the first time that Israel has done this. They did this in, I believe, prior to Greta boarding in Greta Thunberg boarding in a previous effort. They had bombed it as a show of force and a message. But like the fact that they can disable these flotilla boats without any casualties, the fact that they can be so targeted in their strikes on these boats, it's just another piece of, a mountain of evidence that obviously they have the capacity to limit casualties in Gaza if they so choose. I mean, you see these drones that shot that doctor in the head the other day, right. A precision strike. You see that they have the ability to take over, to blast Netanyahu's UN speech into Gaza, to take over their phones and intercept their communications. I mean, Anthony Lowenstein's book, The Palestine Laboratory, is so important here because it's basically 141 square miles of experiments of the most sadistic military technology possible, and they pretend like they can't be precise in any way when they can be the most precise of any military in history.
Right. Yes, because they did manage to. Strike 9 of these ships plus in Tunisia, and without doing what they were nervous about doing, which is going over the line and killing somebody from Spain or Italy or the United States, which then ratchets up the diplomatic pressure that they would be under. Just the fact that they were attacking and setting fire to these boats, brought significant amounts of diplomatic blowback, even from a country like Italy, where that has an extremely pro-Israel prime minister. So yeah, you're right. It does show that if they decide that they don't want to kill people, they do actually have the capacity to not kill people.
Gustavo Petro of Colombia expelled, I believe, in response to this, Israeli diplomats over the interception of the flotilla. Just as a contrast to the European governments, I think it's important to point that out. But can you shed any light on like the decision of these European ship escorts to retreat once the said orange zone approached? Like, obviously Maloney is far right and was not in favor of this, and then you have Italy's largest union striking just overnight in response to this. But talking about Spain and Greece and what their role is in this is interesting to me too.
There was some hope among some of those either on board or watching the flotilla that these ships would accompany them, all the way to the shores effectively, and help to open up a humanitarian corridor. That wasn't their plan. So I've seen people argue it both ways. On the one hand, say, well, this is just a stunt. They're just trying to make their own domestic publics feel a little bit better about the unconditional fealty that they've given to Israel over the years. And so they're like, look, at least we're doing something. We're sending it, because they were very clear that they kept underlining that these are rescue ships, that they were not there to confront Israel. However, ships like the type of ship you sends its own message. They didn't send Coast Guard. They didn't send the Coast Guard, which those are the kinds of vehicles you would send if it was just a rescue operation. So the fact that they sent actual, armed up military vehicles, naval ships, was a political signal as well. That, okay, we're going to say that this is a rescue effort, and we're not going to go in beyond the orange zone. But the fact that they sent it out at all is something of a significant departure from the past.
Alex Colson, you're of DropSite. I saw in your guys' write-up of what's been happening, spoke about how the IDF was spraying the flotilla with something called skunk water. We have this short clip of Greg Stoker, who we've had on the show before. He was on the veterans boat, and he has some short footage of he's ripping a cig in this, which is hilarious. But this is some footage of said skunk water, which Israel has used many times over the years against Palestinians. So you can see that yellow spray. All right, there. I'm just laughing at Greg. Just being a legend. But can you explain that skunk water stuff and Israel's usage of it and what DropSite has found on that front?
Yeah, I mean it's a crowd control measure that Israel has been deploying for quite some time. That has kind of an extra layer of sadism to it. That it is, from everybody, I've never been around it, but everybody who describes it, it's just, produces this utterly repulsive scent, just absolutely disgusting. And this isn't an unusual use for it, in the sense that, where do you want the crowd to go? Like, is this, if it's crowd control and you're trying to make an area stink and make a bunch of people stink and get them to go from, the town square where they're protesting to somewhere else, that's a use case for it. But they're on the boat. What are they going to do? Like jump in the sea? And how does them jumping in the sea actually help the IDF get them into custody? So this felt more just like conspicuous sadism than anything related to any kind of operational strategy here.
And that's the other thing is that this is international waters. I mean, Israel is continuously asserting...
Your early point that this is illegal is a key one.
Yeah, can you expand on that? Because, I mean, this is like, it's just like taken as granted that, yeah, Israel should be able to do whatever the hell they want in international waters that are approaching the Gaza Strip.
And it's right. So they have no authority whatsoever over them when they're not in Israeli waters, which they weren't anywhere close to. But B, as the organizers pointed out to the Israeli military over the PA, the International Court of Justice barred Israel from blocking humanitarian aid. The ICJ said that the world needs to flood aid into Gaza and that Israel must stop blocking the aid. So not only do they have no authority to board these vessels and arrest these people, they have been specifically barred from doing so by the International Court of Justice. Clearly, they had no intention of abiding by that order, though.
Very, very clearly. Ryan Grimm, thanks so much for coming on. Also on short notice, I appreciate it, giving us a sense of what's happening. And, following Drop Site right now is essential. You guys do the best explainers, and you have somebody obviously on the ground reporting on this incredibly historic mission. Thanks so much, Ryan, for coming on today.
Thanks for the kind words, Emma. Very much appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon. Quick break. When we come back, we are going to be turning to the UK, speaking to Natasha Hakimi Zapata, award-winning journalist, about Labour collapsing in the UK and the rise of Corbyn's new left-wing party. We'll be right back after this. We are back, and we are joined now by Natasha Hakimi Zapata, award-winning journalist, author of Another World is Possible, Lessons for America from Around the Globe. And she has a new piece in The Nation entitled Labour Has Only Itself to Blame for the UK's New Left-Wing Party. Natasha, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about the Labour Party's very bad month of September, because their support has already, sunk like a stone since they won the election last year, but it was as unconvincing and as narrow as possible. What has been happening under Labour Party rule, I guess, in the UK?
Yeah, just to back up a little bit, you have 14 years of Conservative rule and then one very bad year of Labour rule in which there just seemed to be sort of muddling through with kind of Tory light policies, sometimes moving even further right on certain issues. And people are really hurting in the UK. So public services are crumbling. You have the beloved National Health Service, through systematic underfunding and austerity policies, really struggling to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a cost of living crisis fueled by an energy crisis. And you have about over a third of children in poverty in the UK. And so even though a lot of that was inherited by this new Labour government that won what's called a loveless landslide last July with Keir Starmer at the helm, Labour hasn't been seen to really change anything meaningfully, which, when they were elected last summer, that's what a lot of people were hoping for after 14 years of Tories. But things sort of came to a head this past September. So just a few things that happened was that the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, had to quit over a tax scandal. She didn't pay enough tax on a property sale or property purchase. It was the same week that the UK's ambassador to the US was found to have close ties to Jeffrey Epstein, so Peter Mandelson. Then you had, well, that's just a few things that happened that week. You also, the week was kind of bookended with, on Saturday, September 6th, 900 activists being arrested in London during a demonstration for support of Palestine Action, a group that Starmer's government has recently designated a terrorist organization.
Wow.
And this is actually the second time that hundreds of activists have been arrested at a pro-Palestine protest, and what's being seen as an escalating clampdown on free speech. And on the other end of that week, you have the largest far-right protest in British history. So over 150,000 people, again, coming out in London in support of white supremacist figures like Tommy Robinson, with Elon Musk appearing via live stream, calling for an end to this government. And yeah, so all of this is to say it has been a pretty bad September for Labor and Keir Starmer.
And could you give people some more context, if they're unfamiliar, as to the nature of Labor's victory last year and how, yes, they are the majority government, but it was as, unconvincing as it gets in terms of how they were able to take power?
Right. So the reason it's being called a loveless landslide is that Keir Starmer's Labour actually had less share of the vote thanks to what's called the first past the post system. So they don't have proportional representation here in Parliament, which is less share of the vote than Jeremy Corbyn's Labour did a few years ago. And so even though they have a pretty huge majority in Parliament, they actually have less popular support in absolute numbers than Jeremy Corbyn's Labour did. And so a lot of this kind of loveless landslide also reveals just how fragile things are in the UK. You have the sort of two main parties, the Labour Party and the Conservatives, the Tory Party, slowly falling apart in many ways. So the Tories are kind of becoming irrelevant. You have the rise of Reform led by Nigel Farage, who sort of led the charge for Brexit and has since started a new party called Reform. And at the same time, Labour, which especially under Jeremy Corbyn was a left-wing socialist party, obviously a broad church party in which you had people like Keir Starmer, who would be considered a sort of the center-right of the party, moving further and further and further right. So just to give you an idea on things like immigration, in this last cabinet shakeup that Keir Starmer had after his deputy prime minister resigned, and he had all this embarrassment with the UK ambassador to the US, he had Shabana Mahmood, who's on the right of Labour, who's further right than even him, take over as Home Secretary, and recently announced at the Labour conference that they're going to be even more restrictive barriers for immigrants to get citizenship in the UK. And so many people see all of this as further normalizing the far right, further fueling the rise of Reform that is being seen in many polls to possibly win the majority of seats in Parliament if they're in a coming general election. And again, as I said earlier, at the same time, people are really suffering, and this Labour government has done very little to show them that they actually care about workers, that they actually care about, public services. They've continued with austerity policies. They've even implemented some very mean ones of their own, like getting rid of a winter fuel payment for the elderly, and eventually having to backtrack on that, but then re-implementing it with means testing. So just, things like that, like the elderly not even being able to depend on being able to heat their homes during winter.
And it should be noted that many of the British consultants that have assisted Keir Starmer in this center-right takeover of Labour were advising, unfortunately, the Kamala Harris campaign in the fall. And you can see how some of those similar capitulations were adopted on issues like immigration, and a more abundancy focus on like free market solutions to housing and things like that. But this seems even more severe to me than that. Like, embracing austerity, are we back in the 90s or something like that? It's so retrograde that it's obviously untenable.
Yeah, and just to go back to immigration, speaking of how shocking some of this has been, Keir Starmer himself made a speech in which he said that the UK was at risk of becoming an island of strangers, with echoes, many pointed out there were echoes of the white supremacist Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech. And that kind of language was just impossible to expect from a Labour leader, even from some Tories just a few years ago.
Obviously, the issue of Palestine looms so large over all of this. We can trace the devolution of kind of all of this to the expulsion of Jeremy Corbyn from Labour And he is forming a new left-wing political party that seems to be generating a lot of enthusiasm. It's called the Your Party, Y-O-U-R, along with, I believe, this former Labour Parliament member, Zara Sultana. Although I did read some article that maybe she's being a little bit sidelined, although perhaps that's too in the weeds. But tell us a little bit about this new party that Corbyn's trying to form.
Yeah, so Corbyn and Sultana and a few other independent MPs who last summer during the same general election were elected as independents, partly because of their stance on Gaza, because many people on the left here in the UK and many others, there's actually more than half of Britons say that Israel's actions in Gaza are unjustified. 65% of Labour voters do. And many people see Starmer's continued support and funding and arming of the Israeli state during what the United Nations has called a genocide just impossible to support. And so recognizing that Gaza has become a key fault line in British politics, Corbyn and Sultana, who was actually kicked out of the Labour Party, not just because she voted against one of these sort of mean austerity measures that was going to, really affect vulnerable people. She was told she could not be let back into the party because of social media posts that she had being critical of the government's support of Israel. And so this is kind of a key reason that this new party, Your Party, gets started. But again, a lot of the support that it immediately gets is based as well on just how much people are suffering, how Labor seems to have been purging the left, as you've pointed out, starting with Jeremy Corbyn himself in 2020, as soon as Starmer essentially took the reins of Labour, but also, continually kicking out left-wing MPs who vote against their austerity policies. And this new party, Your Party, has been announced to sort of fill that void on the left that many, many, many people here feel. And you had, within days, despite a rocky start, which, I described, and as you said, there's still quite a few issues and some infighting and things that are kind of messily publicly or spilling into the public, about 800,000 people have signed up now to support this party. And that was just within a few days, actually. So there's clearly this really desperate desire for a left alternative.
Palestine is the tip of the spear in that way. Like, just like here in the U.S., it's a litmus test for bravery on other issues. Even issues like housing, for example, is an issue that you highlight in your piece. Can you describe the split between what Labour is proposing on that front and what, say, the left-wing vision of the Your Party would be speaking about, just as another example?
Right. So this is a notoriously landlord-friendly country. I think it goes all the way back to feudalism, honestly. And you have the Labour government, this current Labour government, finally passing, renters' protections. There's no rent control. Your landlord can kind of turn around and just raise your rent 30% with the next time you're trying to get a contract. There's a ton of other issues. And this renters' rights bill that has still not been implemented, that is hopefully not going to be killed, but there are already rumors that it might be killed, is this step in the right direction, as many people told me. And yet they stopped short of doing things like rent control, which were actually common before Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s. And that's just kind of indicative of what this Labour government has done across the board. So on some issues moving further right, like immigration, but on others just kind of messing around the edges of things and not going far enough, not really creating or articulating an alternative vision from the chaos that people have experienced here for the past over a decade.
And reform, that's a good place to turn. Nigel Farage, we've covered him on our show a bit sparingly, but like a rising right-wing figure in UK politics, once dismissed as a crank, now leading this kind of like alternative far-right party that's centered around anti-immigrant sentiment. Stop me if you've heard this before. What are the prospects of reforms, the Reform Party making significant gains next election cycle? I know they already did, but we could be talking about a far-right government if trends continue.
Right. I mean, the most recent polls show Reform UK actually getting a majority in Parliament, meaning that Nigel Farage could possibly be the next Prime Minister of the UK. Labour are now, really talking about reform as the opposition. They just had their conference, and Starmer and all of these other Labour leaders made all of these speeches, and reform was mentioned constantly. Farage was mentioned constantly. But importantly, before another general election, which won't be for another few years, you have local elections in the spring of 2026, in which Labour is expected to lose a massive amount of council seats. And that's actually, they're expected to lose them to reform, but also your party insiders tell me that the party is positioning itself to take back some of those disaffected left-wing voters that Starmer seems to have nothing but contempt for these days.
And can you speak a little bit more about that effort? What are the issues that are central to that kind of attempt to bring voters over?
Right. So as you pointed out, the party is still forming. It's set up all of these assemblies and a conference in November in which they're going to vote on a name. So it's actually not going to be called Your Party, or maybe it is. They're trying to make it as democratic as possible, which has its pros and cons.
Right.
But so a lot of things haven't been decided yet, and a policy platform hasn't been decided yet. But what is their assumed policy platform, just based on things like Corbyn's track record, Sultana's track record, and what they've said is that they'll be anti-austerity. They're in favor of tax rises on the wealthy. They are also in favor of funding the National Health Service, which is extremely popular in the UK, as you know, and keeping it in public hands and kind of rolling back some of that stealth privatization that we've seen since the 1980s. And things like rent controls. These are all extremely popular and are things that your party would presumably run on, and yet sort of the exact opposite of the direction that Labour has been taking.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm seeing this IM here saying, your party could be a spoiler. I just want just to educate some people a little bit on the parliamentary system, if you don't mind expanding on how it's quite different than the United States.
And maybe don't expel your left wing if you don't want a spoiler. But
yeah, good
anyway,
point. But
well, that's kind of exactly right, and that's what a lot of people told me. People are blaming Corbyn and this new party for possibly this rise of reform. But the reality is, even before this party that your party existed, the rise of reform was sort of happening in large part because of the way that Labour and the Tories have normalized Farage and this anti-immigrant rhetoric. But also, as Matt pointed out, if you get rid of your left, it sort of follows that they have to figure something else out. Jeremy Corbyn is an independent. He was in the Labour Party for decades. And, for the first time in his career is outside of it. And so a lot of people, both within politics and outside of it, are looking for an alternative, and they're not going to go back to Labour. With regards to the way that the parliamentary system works, it is true that with a first-past-the-post system in which it's not proportional representation, you could have a situation in which the left vote is split. But again, it's sort of questionable whether the left would even vote for Labor anymore. Many Labor voters have told me that they wouldn't, especially with the direction that this government's taking. There's also a possibility of coalition with the Green Party. So the Green Party now has a new leader, Zach Polanski, who actually has very similar views to Corbyn and Sultana, who's kind of an eco-populist, as he calls himself. And despite the fact that there are clearly electoral challenges, there is still quite a lot that seemingly can be done even within the system.
Right. I mean, you can form a coalition. It's different than, of course, the United States on that front. So I guess lastly, there, where do you see this going over the next year or so ahead of the 2026 elections that you're speaking about? I mean, we've talked about it in broad strokes, but can the worst be avoided? Like, you're talking about Elon Musk doing virtual rallies on behalf of reform. We saw that at the very least the worst was avoided in a somewhat similar example in Germany. I know that the conservative government has still ended up winning there, but that was where Elon was trying to put his thumb on the scales, and you can see the global far right trying to coalesce behind Farage and reform. Do you think they'll be successful? What's your read?
So despite the fact that, as we pointed out earlier, there's been some sort of chaos within the party and a bit of public trust has been lost recently for this new party, your party, there's such a desperate desire for a mass left party that it seems like people still have enough goodwill to kind of go forward and go to this conference and really establish this party and set an agenda and hopefully, be ready for those local elections. And when it comes to the far right, this country has a long history of fighting off the far right. You had Edward Mosley and his black shirts in the 1920s and 30s, and he never rose to power, really, because just as much as there are fascist elements and far-right elements within British society, there's also a very strong left, and although has been weakened in recent decades, there's still a very strong left and still a very strong anti-fascist tradition. And so I don't know exactly what's going to happen in these upcoming elections, but as someone who lives here, I'm really hoping that a new, better vision for the UK starts to take form soon.
Thanks for leaving us with a little bit of a glimmer of hope. Natasha Hakimi Zapata, you can read this piece talking about a lot of this in The Nation. Labour has only itself to blame for the UK's new left-wing party. And then, of course, Natasha's book, Another World is Possible, Lessons for America from Around the Globe. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Emma.
Of course. With that, folks, we are going to wrap up the free part of this show and head into the fun part of the show. We will have fun today. I'm very excited to make fun of Benny Johnson and Corey Lewandowski obsessing over Bad Bunny at the Super Bowl.
Every American will soon receive their own MedBed card.
I just a little behind the scenes. Matt has not stopped talking about the med beds since Monday.
I've played that song clip pretty much every 15 minutes since I put it on the soundboard.
Med bed. It's fun to say.
Yeah. Brandon Sutton.
Oh, hey, Brandon.
Good afternoon, party people. How's it going?
It's going well. Have you heard about med beds? Have you placed your name on the waiting list?
I mean, I'm trying to get my name on the waiting list, but it's so popular that it's like getting a Labubu now.
Do you think the med bed can work out for you? Like you can just sit in there and it's like the equivalent of going to the gym?
Well, it incorporates Trump's scientific kind of explanations for things. So in fact, resting is better than going to the gym and laying horizontally. That's how your battery recharges in the med bed. Anyway, Brandon, what's happening on your show?
Oh, well, I think I've had a few days off, and by I think I mean I know, because I was visiting the UK. But now that I'm back, we're going to be diving right back into where we left off, which is Charlie Kirk conspiracies. And they've really been percolating since I've been away for the past 3 days. I feel like where we are now is nowhere near where we were yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean last week. And other than that, I think we'll just be looking to have a lot more fun over the weekend, just like, dance as the ship goes down.
Well, I'm all for that. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Left Reckoning. We had a couple of great guests. Gwen Howerton talking about the attack on trans folks down in Texas, one ground zero in that fascist assault. And also Gil Duran talking about Peter Thiel's obsession with the Antichrist and how, let's say, like, if there's one group of people Peter Thiel would want to impress, it's sort of like religious fanatic Austrians, and they apparently they were not fans of his lecture series, which is probably it's very disappointing for him. But I would talk about that. And also over at YouTube, where we're 100 subscribers short of 50,000, we're going to be premiering part of our look into Ezra Klein's Identity Crisis right after Majority Report finishes today.
All right, check it out, folks. For Matt Binder, he'll, I believe, be joining us in the fun half, but check out the Scam Economy, Dooms, Leftist Mafia, also his newsletter as well, which I need the name of, but I can't remember right now. That's why we need him here. He'll tell us on the other side of things. We will see you in the fun half.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the Majority Report.
Wait, look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please.
No. I'm gonna pause you right there.
Wait, what?
You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why.